There was a shrimp skewer still halfway to my mouth when I realized the room had gone quiet. Then the laughter started. Not polite laughter. Not, we're all friends here laughter. It was the kind of sharp, echoing cackle that scrapes against your spine. Laughter that doesn't include you. I didn't hear the joke itself. I only heard the last part. And that's why I told him, maybe you should propose to your mother instead. More laughter. More eyes darting toward me. And her, Marley, wiping a fake tear from the corner of her eye, smiling wide, her perfect teeth catching the chandelier light. I knew she was talking about me. I just didn't know how far it went. There were 15 people in that room. Her coworkers, her friends, a couple of people I'd seen on Zoom calls, but never met in person. I'd been introduced to most of them earlier that evening as just Clark. No mention of the ring on my finger or the date we'd already put a deposit on. And I had ignored that. I ignored it when she rolled her eyes behind my back as I told her boss I worked in warehouse systems. I ignored it when she physically pulled her hand out of mine as we walked into the room. I even ignored it when she refilled her wine glass twice without offering me a drink. But this was a different kind of cruelty. She had stood in front of everyone, told a private story about my proposal, twisted it into some kind of joke, and made me the punchline. Then she laughed along with everyone else like I was just some background character in her curated life. I stood there, half-chewed shrimp in my mouth, heart jackhammering. And I made a choice. I set the skewer down, straightened my tie, and said, just loud enough to cut through the laughter, well, that saves me the cost of a wedding band. The room hushed instantly. Marley blinked. Someone coughed. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope with the venue deposit receipt still inside, and tore it right down the middle. Then I laid it gently on the table beside the charcuterie board and walked toward the door. Marley called after me. Clark. Seriously? But I didn't stop. Not even when she followed me out into the hallway. Not even when she hissed, you're overreacting. It was just a joke. I turned, finally, and said, you were supposed to be my future, not my humiliation. I left the party, but the story didn't end there. Because 3 hours later, while I sat alone in a booth at a 24-hour diner with my phone face down and my appetite gone, a message came in from someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Marley's ex-roommate. It read, I never told you what she said about you behind your back. But after tonight, you deserve to know. What she sent next ruined every ounce of peace I had left, and started the unraveling of everything I thought I knew about the woman I was supposed to marry. I must have stared at that message for a full minute, the buzzing of the diner's fluorescent lights drowning out every sound around me. My fries had gone cold. My soda had gone flat. I wasn't even sure I was breathing. I never told you what she said about you behind your back. But after tonight, you deserve to know. That was the first line. From Taryn, her old roommate from when she first moved into the city. I barely remembered the last time I spoke to her. Maybe a quick wave at a 4th of July barbecue 2 years ago. She moved out suddenly, said she found a new lease on the west side. Marley had brushed it off as creative differences. I didn't ask questions. I was in love. But Taryn clearly hadn't forgotten a thing. The next message came in seconds later. I didn't say anything before because I thought you were just temporary. Everyone did. But I'm so sorry. She told us you were just a safe option until someone better came along. I remember reading that line 3 times. Safe option. Safe. Like I was a seatbelt. Or a backup plan. Or a fire extinguisher behind glass. I couldn't tell if I was angry or just numb. But I kept reading. Taryn continued. She used to call you Clark the carpet behind your back. Said you were easy to walk on and wouldn't complain. She said you'd marry her no matter what she did. That's why she stayed. My hands started to shake. That stupid proposal night, with the fairy lights and the jazz playlist and the handwritten speech I spent weeks on, she'd said, yes, with tears in her eyes. And now I had to wonder if that was all performance. If the tears were for the man she wished I was, or the security I stupidly gave her. Taryn wasn't finished. She was still seeing Ashton. While you were planning the wedding, they hooked up 3 times. Once at your own apartment when you were visiting your mom. She bragged about it. The rest of the text was a screenshot. It was from a group chat Marley was in with 3 girls from her office. In it, she wrote, Clark is sweet, but the guy can't even kiss without apologizing. Ashton reminds me what I'm missing. I need this wedding to come faster before I lose my mind. I didn't know what hurt more. The betrayal? The mockery? Or the fact that I'd felt something was wrong for months and still did everything I could to make her feel loved. I didn't respond to Taryn. I couldn't. I just sat there in that peeling red vinyl booth, surrounded by strangers chewing pancakes at 1 a.m., wondering how I'd let this happen. How I'd been so blind. So desperate. The worst part? I still missed her. Even after everything. I missed the version of her that smiled at my bad impressions and said, "You make me feel safe." I missed the lie. Then, as if the universe hadn't delivered enough pain for one night, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Marley. "We need to talk. You're being ridiculous." No apology. No explanation. Just that tone again. Like I was some toddler throwing a tantrum because I didn't get my way. I didn't answer. But I also didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed awake until the sun came up, reading and rereading every old message we'd ever sent. Looking for clues. Looking for moments where maybe she'd been honest. Where maybe I had made a mistake. At 6:12 a.m., I decided to go back to our apartment. Not to talk. Not to fix anything. I just wanted to pack my things and leave. But when I walked through the door, something stopped me cold. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, buzzing. Unlocked. And someone was calling. A name I didn't recognize. A name I would never forget. Because it wasn't just Ashton. There was someone else. The screen lit up with that name again, right as I reached for the suitcase. Wesley Jim. I froze. I knew exactly one Wesley in her life. And he wasn't from the gym. He was her cousin's husband. Married, 2 kids, lives in Arizona. But the Jim tag? That wasn't a contact name she'd ever had before. And as the call rang out and the screen dimmed, my pulse kicked hard against the side of my throat. I don't know what possessed me, but I picked up her phone. I shouldn't have. I knew it. But after everything she'd done, the idea of still playing the respectful, trustful partner felt like a joke. I opened her messages. There weren't any recent texts from Wesley. Nothing under that name. But when I searched the word hotel, something came up under a different contact. A save number with a blank name. Just digits. And right there, in between flirtatious emojis and late night, "Can't wait to see you again" messages, was one that said, "Same hotel as last time. I'll bring the wine, you bring the guilt." My stomach twisted. I tapped into the photo gallery, hands shaking, breath shallow, and my eyes locked onto an image that made everything feel unreal. It was her, in a red dress I'd never seen before, taking a mirror selfie, smiling with her hand resting on someone's chest. I couldn't see the face, just the suit jacket. But the cufflinks? They had a distinct logo, a university seal, the same university Wesley graduated from. She'd shown me photos from his commencement party years ago, bragging about how he was the hot one in her extended family. I sat down. I didn't even realize my knees had buckled until I felt the cold tiles of the kitchen floor pressing into my jeans. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been 2 minutes. Could have been 30. Her place was so silent. You could hear the fridge hum like a mosquito in the walls. She had lied to me on a level I hadn't even imagined. While I was mourning the engagement, she turned into a joke. She was out there rekindling something with a married man, hiding it behind workouts and wellness retreats. I finally stood, packed what I could, 2 bags, my laptop, my toothbrush, and left everything else. I couldn't stay, couldn't think straight, couldn't breathe in the same apartment where she'd crafted her double life. I took the bus across town to my brother's place. I didn't even text him first. I just showed up and stood in the hallway like some ghost of myself. When he opened the door, he didn't ask anything, just looked at my face and moved aside to let me in. I dropped the bags, collapsed onto the couch, and after a long silence I said, "She was sleeping with her cousin's husband." Trevor blinked. "Wait, what? Marley?" I nodded. He just whistled. "Dude." That's all he said. But I didn't need sympathy. I didn't even want understanding. What I needed, desperately, was clarity. Because everything still felt blurry, like I was stuck in some slow-motion nightmare I hadn't woken up from yet. Then my phone buzzed. Her again. This time, a string of texts. "Can we please talk? I didn't mean to hurt you. There's more to this than you know. Please don't make assumptions." I only told them that story at the party to make them laugh. I panicked. I didn't know what else to say. "You're blowing this up, and it's not fair to either of us." "Fair." She said fair. I handed the phone to Trevor without saying anything. He scrolled. "She's gaslighting you, man." I knew he was right, but part of me still wanted her to deny it outright. To say, "That photo's fake." Or, "That wasn't Wesley." Or, "I don't know whose number that is." But she never did. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even when I blocked her. 3 days passed. Then I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, a new message popped up. I almost didn't listen, but something told me to press play. It wasn't Marley. It was Wesley's wife. And what she said made everything I knew up to that point feel like a preview. She wasn't just reaching out to talk. She had a plan, and she wanted my help to bring Marley's secrets into the light, in a way no one at that party would ever forget. Her voice was calm. Too calm, honestly. That kind of slow, steady tone people use when they're standing over the edge of a cliff, not sure if they're about to scream or jump. She didn't introduce herself right away. She didn't need to. "Hi, Clark. I'm sure you know who this is by now. I got your number from Marley's phone. I found some things about her and Wesley, and I'm done pretending I didn't see it." She paused. I didn't breathe. Her next words came sharper. "If you want to know everything, I'll be at Bellamy's Cafe at 5 p.m. Come alone." That was it. No threats. No begging. Just facts. I sat in Trevor's apartment, watching the message play over and over. Then I stared out the window for almost an hour, wondering what kind of mental state I had to be in to even consider meeting the wife of the guy my fiancée cheated on me with. But deep down, I knew I was already going. When I got to Bellamy's, one of those quiet little places with fake books on the walls and overpriced herbal tea, she was already there, sitting in the far corner. She looked exactly how I imagined someone in her position would look, flawless on the outside, shattered behind the eyes. A well-dressed storm. She slid a folder across the table without saying a word. Inside, printouts of texts, screenshots, hotel invoices. One of them had both their names on it, Wesley and Marley, for a wellness suite at a resort 3 towns over. 2 weeks before I proposed. I hadn't even known she left that weekend. She told me it was a branding retreat. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked, finally breaking the silence. She looked at me, lips tight. "Because I think we've both been lied to long enough. And because you deserve better than just walking away with your tail between your legs. She humiliated you in front of all those people, didn't she?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Her voice lowered. "I want you to help me expose her." The word expose felt like fire in my ears. I wasn't sure if it was right, if it was ethical, if it was me. But something inside me had shifted since that party. The part of me that once bent over backwards to make Marley laugh, to keep her warm, to fix every crack she swore wasn't there. That part was dead. She leaned forward. "They're planning a weekend trip next Friday. She thinks he told me it's a golf tournament." She pulled out a hotel confirmation email. 1 room, king bed, 2 names again. "They've been using the same alias," she said. "You want to confront her? Catch them both? This is your chance." I looked at the document, felt my hands start to tremble. I'd never done anything like this. Never even raised my voice at Marley. But this wasn't about screaming. This was about finally stepping out of the pathetic little corner she'd painted me into. I nodded slowly. "I'll help you." She reached across the table and placed a single key in my palm. To the room next to theirs. I booked it myself. They'll never see it coming. The next few days were a blur of logistics. I felt like I was floating through my own life. Calling in sick to work, packing light, ignoring Marley's increasingly frantic texts. She sent 5 long paragraphs on Thursday night about how she made mistakes, but needed space to explain. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The version of me who answered those messages was already gone. Friday came. I took the train 2 hours north to the resort, checked in under the name she'd booked for me, and waited in silence until I saw them arrive from my window. Her hand was in his. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was happy about it. They went into the room. I waited 15 minutes. Then I knocked. Not on their door. On the one next to it. Wesley's wife opened it immediately. No words, just a tight nod. She handed me a Bluetooth speaker, already paired to her phone. I didn't ask what she planned. I didn't have to. Because what came next would make Marley wish the only thing she'd lost was a wedding. I've never been the confrontational type. I'm the guy who lets strangers cut in line at the grocery store. The one who apologizes when someone else bumps into me. But standing there, just a few feet away from the hotel room where my fiancée was laughing with someone else's husband, I felt something I hadn't let myself feel in weeks. Clarity. The woman standing beside me, Wesley's wife, Delaney, was already scrolling through her phone, adjusting the volume on the Bluetooth speaker we were about to slide under their door. Her fingers were steady. Her eyes weren't. "You're sure about this?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. She looked at me, and for the first time, smiled, not out of joy, but exhaustion. I've never been more sure of anything. The audio file she had queued up wasn't just one recording. It was a carefully edited mashup of text-to-speech versions of Marley's and Wesley's own messages. Every flirty text, every smug inside joke, every time they mocked me or her behind our backs, compiled into a single, 5-minute track that would destroy whatever illusion they thought they were living in. She had synced it all to play through the speaker once the power button was tapped. "Ready?" she whispered. I gave one final nod, slid the speaker under their hotel door, and stepped back. Delaney tapped her screen. The soft hum of the speaker starting up was followed by silence. Then Marley's voice echoed into the hallway, robotic but unmistakable. "Clark still thinks I'm stressed from wedding stuff. Meanwhile, Wes just reminded me how fun a real man can be." Then Wesley's voice. "Let him plan the wedding. We'll enjoy the honeymoon without him." Then more texts about me, about Delaney, about how they'd gotten good at sneaking, about how people like them always land on their feet. I could hear movement behind the door. Then muffled voices. A sharp, panicked female voice, "Marley." And then, the door flew open. She stood there in a silk robe I'd never seen before, her hair slightly tousled, cheeks flushed. For half a second, she looked surprised, then horrified. "Clark." Her voice cracked like she was the one who'd been wronged. Delaney stepped forward before I could speak. "You forgot to block me on the family iPad," she said coolly. "Thanks for the entertainment." Marley's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Behind her, Wesley stumbled into view, shirtless, confused, holding a wine glass like it was a weapon of defense. He saw Delaney. "Wait, Del." She cut him off. "You booked the room under your name. You genius." Then I stepped forward, voice shaking but firm. "I'm not here for closure. I just wanted to see your face when the walls caved in." Marley reached out. "Clark, wait. This isn't what you think." I laughed. I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because it was exactly what I thought. For once, I wasn't being paranoid. I wasn't being needy. I wasn't overthinking. I'd simply been played. For months. And now the curtain was down. The hallway had filled with a few curious guests poking their heads out. One woman actually gasped when she recognized Marley. I think she worked at the same PR firm. The whispering started immediately. That was Delaney's cue. She took a photo. One single photo. Marley, me, Wesley, the wide-open hotel room behind us, the wine bottle on the nightstand, and the Bluetooth speakers still humming at our feet. "I'll be sending this to HR," Delaney muttered. "Your branding genius just rebranded herself." Then she turned and walked away. I stayed just long enough to look Marley in the eyes one last time. "You turned me into a joke at that party. But this time, the whole room's laughing at you." She didn't follow me. Not immediately, anyway. But that didn't mean she gave up. Because as I left the hotel, my phone buzzed again. A long, panicked message that said, "Please, there's something you don't understand. If this gets out, everything could collapse." She didn't mean our relationship. She meant her career. And the next morning, I found out just how much she had to lose, and what she was willing to do to stop me from saying a word. I barely slept that night. Not because of guilt. Not even because of the confrontation itself. But because I realized that somewhere between Marley laughing at me at that party and her sneaking around with her cousin's husband, I'd stopped being angry and started being numb. Like a part of me had finally given up fighting for something that never existed in the first place. But at 8:42 a.m. the next morning, my phone started vibrating on the nightstand like it was having a seizure. 7 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and one text message that stood out from the rest. "Please don't go public. I'll do anything." I didn't even open it at first. Just stared at the screen and wondered how the same person who used me as a punchline now wanted mercy. What mercy had she shown me when she looked into my eyes and told that humiliating story? What mercy did she show when she let Wesley put his hands all over her while wearing the engagement ring I bought? But curiosity got the better of me. I tapped the message, and below it came a string of others. Rapid, desperate, unraveling one by one. "You don't know what you're doing. This could ruin my job. HR already contacted me. I told them it was all lies. Please don't show anyone that photo. We can still fix this. I'll tell them you manipulated the audio. If you say anything else, I swear." I stopped reading. That last one said everything. She wasn't sorry for cheating. She wasn't sorry for lying. She was sorry she got caught. I didn't respond. Instead, I went online, scrolled through LinkedIn, and searched her company's name. PR firm. Slick website. Dozens of team bios filled with words like visionary, storyteller, culture architect. And there she was, Marley, senior brand strategist. Smiling in a blazer, her arms crossed, confident, unbothered. I clicked on the press page and saw the news. Her firm was pitching for a major corporate campaign, one worth millions. Their biggest potential client ever. Marley was the lead. And now the scandal with Wesley, also married, also working in a branding-adjacent space, was sitting just one viral photo away from blowing it all apart. It made sense now. Her panic, her sudden interest in fixing things, her manipulative messages. This wasn't about me. It was never about me. It was about preserving the polished version of herself she'd built in other people's minds. A few hours later, my brother Trevor came into the living room holding a brown envelope. This was left outside the door. There's no return address. Inside, a flash drive. No note. No label. Just that cold metal rectangle, like something out of a bad spy movie. I plugged it into my laptop. There were 3 files inside. One was a video. One was a folder titled Wesley Calls. The third was a Word document named Insurance. I opened the video first. It was surveillance footage. From the hotel. From their hallway. In it, I watched myself and Delaney slipping the Bluetooth speaker under the door, but then something I hadn't expected. Marley opened the door moments later and looked directly into the hallway camera. She saw it. She knew. She must have known then that we were watching, and still went along with the lie when she begged me to talk that night. Then I opened the audio folder. Phone calls. Voicemails. Wesley and Marley whispering, laughing, sometimes even arguing. I recognized one moment instantly. Wesley saying, "If this leaks, we're both done. Just delete it all. Pretend it never happened." But the worst file? The Word doc. It was written by Marley. A statement, pre-prepared, accusing me of emotional manipulation and revenge harassment. She hadn't sent it yet, but she'd written it, in case I didn't stay quiet. She was going to turn this entire thing around. Use my reaction to her betrayal as her career shield. Paint herself as the victim. Accuse me of creating fake screenshots, coaching Delaney into participating, and leveraging the situation because I was a jealous ex who couldn't let go. My mouth went dry. I felt sick. She was already building a defense while still pretending she wanted to talk. I closed the laptop, my heart pounding out of sync with itself. For a second, I questioned everything. What if people believed her? What if she spun it just right, cried the right amount in the right meeting, framed my pain as obsession, turned my revenge into abuse? I wasn't a fighter. I wasn't slick with words. All I had were the facts, and even those could be twisted when someone like her got desperate. Then my phone buzzed again. A new message. "You have one day. After that, I'll do what I have to do." It wasn't just a warning. It was war. And if Marley wanted war, the quiet, clingy, awkward little man she thought she could walk all over was finally going to give her something she couldn't spin. The funny thing about people like Marley is that they're never sorry for what they did. They're only sorry you caught them before they could spin the story first. That morning after the hotel, the texts didn't stop. Neither did the calls. She must have been clutching her phone like it was a life preserver while her perfect little image cracked open like thin glass. I didn't respond. Not even once. But I read every message, and with each new one, the tone changed, from fake sorrow to gaslighting to veiled threats. At first, she begged. Then she blamed. Then she promised she could explain everything if I just calmed down. Calm down. I'd been calm when she mocked me at that party. I was calm when I watched her disappear into a hotel room with a married man. I was even calm when I packed my bags and walked out of our apartment like I didn't just lose 5 years of my life to someone who thought I was disposable. But what I saw next erased whatever calm I had left. It happened by accident. Trevor and I were scrolling through Instagram while eating breakfast, both of us pretending not to think about the train wreck Marley left behind, when her face popped up. A story. From her company's account. A big white conference room. A ring light. A carefully staged table. And Marley sitting at the head, blazer buttoned, hair curled, holding a wireless mic. "Big pitch day," the caption said. "Proud to have our fearless strategist Marley leading the charge." Trevor turned to me slowly. "Isn't that the client deal she was panicking about?" I nodded. My stomach sank. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't laying low. She was doing what she always did, performing, pretending, smiling like nothing happened, like the world hadn't caught fire beneath her heels. And I suddenly understood something very, very clearly. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing the illusion. That version of herself she'd built. Charming, untouchable, morally bulletproof. It was everything. It was her currency, her protection, her brand. And I had something that could destroy it. The photo from the hotel. The audio. The texts. The Word doc she didn't know I'd seen. The one where she wrote an entire fake harassment report against me in case I spoke out. And most importantly, the truth. But I didn't want to ruin her the way she expected. No social media blasts. No anonymous leaks. No screaming matches outside her office. That's what she was preparing for. That's the narrative she'd already preloaded in her brain. The unhinged ex, trying to take her down because he couldn't move on. No, I needed to be smarter. So I made a plan. And it started with one email. Not to her. Not to Wesley. Not even to HR. I emailed the executive coordinator of the client Marley's firm was pitching, the same Fortune 500 company that was all over the headlines for their values-first leadership culture. I didn't send accusations. I didn't rant. I simply asked, as someone affected by Marley's conduct, would you be open to a private call? I believe some context may be valuable before you sign off on her firm's involvement. That was it. No lies. No threats. Just an offer. I wasn't sure if they'd respond. But 26 minutes later, they did. Hi, Clark. Yes, please let us know a good time today. I set the call for 2 p.m. And when the time came, I clicked join and found myself staring at a screen filled with suits. 2 men and 1 woman, all mid-level execs, looking stiff but curious. One of them asked if I was a journalist. I shook my head and told them everything. But not with bitterness. Not with theatrics. I just laid it all out. The engagement. The humiliation. The workplace affair. The attempted retaliation through a pre-written statement she was likely still sitting on. I told them how it was all documented, verifiable. I offered to send them the evidence, but the woman stopped me halfway through. She glanced at the others, then muted her mic. A minute passed. Then she came back. We appreciate your honesty, she said flatly. And we'll take this seriously. The call ended quickly after that. I didn't know what would happen. I didn't expect much. Honestly, I thought maybe they'd just shelve the deal quietly and ghost her team. But a few hours later, Trevor shoved his phone into my hand, eyes wide. Dude, you better see this. It was another story on her company's Instagram. But this time, there was no smiling Marley. No captions about pitch day. Just a blank white post. Then I saw the message in my inbox. From Marley. What did you do? And this time, I answered her. You taught me how to tell a story, remember? I just made sure it was the true one. I stared at the screen for a while after I sent it, not out of doubt, but because for the first time since the engagement ended, I finally felt like I wasn't the only one left holding the broken pieces. But the story wasn't over. Because that same night, while I was celebrating a small win and thinking I'd finally put Marley behind me, there was a knock at the door. Not a text, not a voicemail, a knock. And when I opened it, I wasn't looking at her. I was looking at someone who came with a folder. And the words, "You might want to sit down for this. There's more." The man at the door introduced himself as Elliot, internal counsel for Wesley's company. Not a lawyer exactly, but a compliance officer with a sharp tone and a folder thick enough to flatten a desk lamp. He wasn't there for drama. He wasn't there for gossip. He was there because Wesley had made this bigger than I realized. Apparently, Wesley hadn't just lied to his wife. He'd lied to everyone, including his own company. There were contracts, non-disclosure agreements, anti-fraternization clauses he'd signed, then broken repeatedly. And when my confrontation at the hotel became rumor, then video, then quiet HR inquiry, it unraveled fast. Elliot handed me a sealed document and said, "This is not a lawsuit. It's a statement. If anyone from Marley's side tries to twist what happened, this verifies your involvement as a third-party witness. You're protected." I blinked. Why would I need protection? He shrugged. Because people like her, they spin. Just be smart. Keep this. He left without shaking my hand. The folder sat on my coffee table like a finished book I didn't want to reopen. I didn't read it until the next day. But I already knew. Wesley was being pushed out. Marley's firm lost the contract. There'd be no more meetings. No big campaign. No Instagram posts about leadership and loyalty. Just silence. She didn't message me again. The next week passed quietly. I didn't tell my friends everything, just the basic version. The engagement ended, and no one pressed. Maybe they knew. Maybe they'd always suspected. But the interesting thing was, after all the drama, the confrontation, the schemes, and the humiliations, I didn't feel broken. I actually felt free. No more walking on eggshells. No more trying to be enough for someone who never saw me as more than a warm placeholder. No more pretending. It was a strange kind of peace. And then, something happened I never saw coming. I went to a local workshop one weekend. Nothing serious, just something my brother signed us up for so I'd get out of the house and maybe meet people who didn't ruin your life. It was a beginner's cooking class. We were partnered randomly. My partner was a woman named Nina. Quiet, a little sarcastic, and very unimpressed with my inability to chop onions properly. She wore a sweatshirt that said, "Be grateful. Or don't. I'm not your mom." I laughed at that, and she raised an eyebrow like, finally, someone who gets it. We talked. We cooked. We burned one dish and accidentally created another. I didn't mention Marley, or Wesley, or the hotel, but I smiled for the first time in a while. A real one. At the end of the class, she said, "You're not as hopeless as you look." And somehow, that was the nicest thing I'd heard in months. We kept in touch. Nothing fast. Nothing dramatic. Just quiet conversations, Sunday meetups, mutual playlists. No fireworks. No fairy tale montage. Just honesty. And honestly, that was exactly what I needed. I don't know what Marley's doing now. Maybe she started over. Maybe she's rebranding again, telling a new story where she's the misunderstood heroine. That's fine. She can keep the fiction. I'll take the truth. I still get nervous sometimes. I still flinch when someone mentions weddings. But I'm not bitter. I'm just someone who walked through fire and came out holding a better match. And if there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that being safe doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're steady. And if someone can't see the value in that, they don't deserve the shelter you offer. I was almost a husband. Now, I'm just a guy who knows how to walk away when laughter turns cruel, and who's finally learning how to laugh for real again.